I refuse to buy these things. Okay, that's not entirely true. A lot of these items that I'm going to be mentioning today aren't necessarily things that I've stopped purchasing altogether. They're just things that I am not purchasing as frequently or consuming in a different way, utilizing more sparsely in my cooking or in my household in order to save a little money. And that's really what I want to get across today, is that saving money, being more frugal, reaching our budget goals, maybe changing the way that our households run. It doesn't have to be a huge drastic change. We don't have to go from one end of the spectrum of buying all the convenience items or eating out 3 or 4 times a week to only buying ingredients to cook from scratch and never eating out, right? There's a lot of middle ground in that spectrum. So instead of just throwing the baby out with the bathwater and completely overhauling the entire way that I am shopping and cooking, I'm just making a few small adjustments to things around the house. I thought I would share with you 10 items, or 10 things, for lack of a better word, that I am just thinking about differently. I'm just changing my mindset, maybe using them less or consuming them in a different manner than I was before. One of the things you will rarely see in my grocery hauls or here in my pantry is canned cream soups. Cream of chicken, cream of mushroom, cream of celery, and that might come as a surprise because I do a lot of crock pot cooking. I really like casseroles. I grew up eating that kind of food because I grew up in a large family. And making those things from scratch did not start out as a money-saving tactic for me. It really began when I correlating having some minor stomach aches to eating recipes I had made using that ingredient. But along the way, I discovered a couple of really easy ways that I can make that quickly with ingredients that I typically already have on hand. I will leave some links in the description box to a couple of my favorite methods, including one that uses cornstarch instead of flour, so it's really easy to make it gluten-free. Now, lest you think this is going to segue into a whole diatribe about how we should cook all of our food from scratch, have no fear. If that's what you want to do, that's great, but that is not for me. I try to be helpful in a kind, positive, realistic way on this channel. Those are the 4 words that are often guiding me when I am creating my content. And honestly, for me, cooking everything from scratch, making everything in my kitchen from scratch, it's just not sustainable or realistic. 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, a lot of times there was at least one homemaker, and sometimes 2 or 3 in the case of multi-generational or large families, who were doing that kind of work and making the ketchup from scratch and making the mayo from scratch. And I work full time. I'm running a business here, so it's just not something that I can do all the time with everything in my kitchen. I enjoy scratch cooking, and sometimes I think it's fun to make some things from scratch or simply to learn how to do it so we know how to make bread if the need ever arises. But there are a few conveniences like the cream soups that I just mentioned that really don't take that much extra time or effort on my part to cook up in my own kitchen, and will save me a little bit of money in the long term, especially if it's something that I utilize frequently. Maybe for you, it's yogurt. If you are a family that consumes a lot of yogurt, I've never tried making yogurt from scratch. Several of you have recommended it and said that it's pretty easy when you have a crock pot or an Instant Pot. You can look up how to do that. Another place would be salad dressings. If you eat a lot of salads as a family, or maybe you pack them in your lunch and you haven't looked into how to make really easy vinaigrettes or even homemade ranch, I've done that several times. Just takes a few minutes. Again, usually ingredients and seasonings that I have on hand in the kitchen, and something that is gonna cost less when I make it in my home than purchasing it, at least at the quality that I want it to be, in the grocery store. This isn't new. I've mentioned this several times before, but years ago, I stopped buying mild flavored cheese. The only time you will find mild cheddar in my refrigerator is if somebody else purchased it. This is a Colby, this is a Colby Jack, this is a cheddar. I often have pepper jack, which has another additional kick of flavor. I just find that it takes less of these to get the cheesy flavor that I'm looking for if I'm making like a broccoli cheddar soup, or I'm making a casserole or a pasta dish or something that calls for cheese. Sharp cheddar is the same price as mild cheddar, but I'm gonna need to use twice as much as the mild cheddar to get that cheesy flavor. So that's just me, because we like cheese in this house, and I know several people have commented on that one way or another. But I learned years ago not to buy mild cheeses. to go for the sharper flavored cheeses because I can use less of them. Let's talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to rising grocery costs these days, and that is the prices that we are seeing on eggs. I think this one hurts so much because eggs have always been just a really good go-to budget-friendly protein and fat source. And there's so much that we can do with it that's pretty family friendly, right? Like scrambled eggs and breakfast tacos and migas, and if we want to get fancier, frittatas and quiches. And I feel like eggs going up to over $5 a dozen, at least in my area, is a harder pill to swallow because it wasn't that long ago, like maybe just a little over a year ago, that I could get a dozen eggs for around $1 or less. But I haven't stopped buying eggs altogether. I'm just using them a little bit differently. I've told my kids we probably aren't gonna have breakfast for dinner as much. I'm probably not gonna be whipping up scrambled eggs as much as I used to, but eggs are something that a lot of baked goods require, or recipes require 1 or 2 eggs as a binder, and sometimes it's difficult to get around that, though not impossible, right? If you enjoy baking, or you just like having some sweet treats from time to time for your family or your friends, and you're trying to conserve dairy and eggs, then you really need to check out some recipes for Wacky Cake. I've also heard this called crazy cake or depression cake. I think that may be when the recipe originated, because while it uses pantry staples like flour, sugar, baking soda, it does not use any eggs, milk, or butter. And again, it does sound crazy or wacky to make a cake that would actually taste good without any of those ingredients, but I've done it many times, and actually there are lots of recipes out there that have taken the basic chocolate crazy cake recipe and adapted it to be like a funfetti cake or a spice cake. I will leave a link in the description box below, or a few links that give some ideas for different kinds of Wacky Cake. Today though, I'm going to attempt a bundt cake version of Wacky Cake. I found this recipe on a website called Tease the Season. I'll leave it linked in the description box. I just feel like there's something really elegant about a bundt cake, especially if you're entertaining or you want to take it somewhere. So if I can actually make one that's tasty without using milk, butter, or eggs, that's gonna be a win. Especially considering that my 2 favorite chocolate cake recipes, one requires 4 eggs and a cup of sour cream, and the other one requires 3 sticks of butter between the cake and the frosting. So if I can figure out a chocolate cake that doesn't use any of that, score. In my bowl here, I am whisking together 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 cups of sugar, 4 tablespoons of cocoa powder, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and a teaspoon of salt. Now I'm adding 2 tablespoons of vinegar. The recipe calls for red vinegar, but that's really just to give the cake, you know, a deeper chocolate color. It doesn't really change the flavor. Just to use regular white vinegar or apple cider vinegar, I think would work too. We need the vinegar to interact with the generous amount of baking soda that we added to this as a leavening agent. It has to have an acid so that it will help the cake to rise. I'm gonna add 3/4 of a cup of oil. This is just vegetable oil, 2 cups of water, and then also a teaspoon of vanilla. And I'm just gonna mix this really thoroughly. I'm gonna pour it into a prepared greased bundt pan, and I'm gonna pop it into the oven at 350 according to the recipe directions. It says to bake it for about 45 minutes, but per the usual, with cakes and baked goods, sometimes you have to just keep an eye on it and adjust the temperatures according to how things work in your oven and your kitchen. I've also heard several people who really like to make cakes in this style who are looking for a plant-based friendly option. Depending on how you finish it off, how you top it with, and double checking your ingredients, it can be friendly to that particular diet. This looks good. It smells amazing. It's springy to the touch. It has this little crack around the edge that I'm looking for in a bundt cake to kind of help me know that it's finishing up. Once this cools off, I'm going to remove it from the bundt pan, and you could just dust a little bit of powdered sugar over the top of it and call it a day. I'm going to make a very simple glaze from just 1 cup of powdered sugar and a couple of teaspoons of milk. That's all that it takes. And I'm going to just glaze the top of this cake. You could do whipped cream and berries. You could do just, you know, a regular frosting, like a white icing. I can't believe we're living in a time when a tub of white icing from the grocery store is actually less than the butter it would cost for me to make buttercream. But lots of options for finishing this up. I'm telling you, every time I make this cake, I am amazed at how moist it is. I know some people don't like that word, red alert, but I'm telling you, if you haven't tried it, you need to give it a try. There are a lot of people in this world, and I have discovered that a lot of those people have some very strong opinions about money and how we should save and or spend it. And the purpose of this video is not to get you to do exactly what I'm doing. I am trying to inspire you to just think about your household expenses, and if there are any places where you can think about using items differently or limiting the purchase of some items in order to keep that wiggle room in your budget so you can splurge on the things that you truly enjoy. There are some things that I would spend money on that some of you would be like, I could totally live without that. And there are some splurges and some luxuries that you would like to find a way to keep in your life. And this is just one of the ways that we can make that happen. And to me, that's what frugality is. It's being wise, it's making a plan, and it's understanding what money is and what it can do for us and putting it to good use, which sometimes means that we're actually spending a little bit more money on a high quality item that's going to improve our life. Or it just means keeping some wiggle room in the budget so that we can still have some luxuries. One thing that we do not spend our grocery budget money on is eating out. And I know if you watch my channel, you're probably thinking, but Mindy, we know you eat out. We know you get takeout. We know you pick up pizza from time to time. We've seen it on your channel and you've mentioned it several times. We don't spend our grocery budget money on that. Years ago, we created another line item in our household budget called recreation. And if we want to go out to eat, if we want to pick up a pizza or some takeout, if we want to go to a show or a sporting event or a movie, any alcohol purchases like beer or wine, they come out of that line item. And there were times when we had $0 from our take-home pay to devote to that line item. And that made us get really creative. If we wanted to be able to go out to eat, if we wanted to be able to do those kinds of things, we had to come up with another way to make money to devote to that. Let me know in the comments below, do you have a different line item in your household budget for eating out and for takeout, or does that all come out of your food or your grocery budget? Maybe that meant that I taught a few voice lessons one semester, or that box of clothes and toys of the kids that was still in good shape actually made it to the consignment shop. One thing we've done for a while that we still do is trade in points that we have earned on rebate apps making everyday purchases for gift cards to fast food places or restaurants. One of those apps we use for that purchase is Upside, and they are sponsoring today's video. I know these days a lot of us are trying to save a little money wherever we can or just offset those rising prices, and Upside can help with that because they offer cash back for making purchases on things like gas, groceries, or dining out. Upside is a free app. You can download it in Google Play or the App Store. It's super easy for me to use. When I use it, I just open up the app on my phone, I look at the offers in my area, and I claim one. Then I just go to that place and make a purchase, and within a few days, the cash is added to my Upside app, and I can cash out to my bank account or to PayPal, or what I typically do is trade it in for a gift card. Upside has a variety of different retailers that you can choose from when you are selecting a gift card to use your Upside cash for. Tonight, actually, we are getting some tacos from Taco Bell. It has been just a crazy busy day. Some things crept into my schedule that were unplanned. So tonight we're just gonna grab a box of tacos and maybe a few other things from Taco Bell, and we're gonna use a gift card that I earned by using my Upside app. To get started, just visit Google Play or the App Store and download the free Upside app. And when you do, use my promo code Mindy because you're gonna get an extra 25 cents off per gallon on your first gas purchase that you claim. So if you drive a minivan like mine that takes 20 gallons, and I actually just claimed an offer for 8 cents per gallon and I got 25 cents more back per gallon, that's 33 cents per gallon on 20 gallons. That's $6.60 that I would be getting in my Upside app using it the first time if I'm using my promo code, which I can't because I'm me, but you can. Upside users can earn hundreds of dollars a year. It has a 4.8 star rating on the App Store. Plus, they don't sell your information to third parties, which I appreciate because I don't need any more junk email coming to my inbox. Am I right? Again, to get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first gas purchase, download the Upside app in Google Play or the App Store. It's a free app, and use my promo code Mindy. And thank you again to Upside for sponsoring today's video and being a longtime supporter of my channel. Hello and welcome back to my lovely garage. Some of you have been here before, and we are here to talk about this fridge behind me. This is a drink fridge, or some people might call it a beer fridge. Here's a funny story. We've actually had this refrigerator since 2009. We wrote it into the contract for an offer we were putting on a house that we purchased back then, and we have had it ever since. The people selling the house were like, hey, one less thing for us to move. It was just a garage fridge for them as well, and it's lasted 13 years for us so far, so score. Just goes to show. Doesn't hurt to ask, right? This fridge is not only where we keep the beer, this is also where we keep soda. And that is something that I have been purchasing much less frequently than I used to. I've seen the prices rise pretty considerably on soda over the last year. And I find that when I'm picking it up, I'm usually looking for really good sales at places like CVS, or Target sometimes has good soda sales. I also decided that I would get a Panera Sip Club membership because I used to visit like QT or Sonic, or the local gas stations to get fountain drinks several times a week. And for $10.99 a month, I could join Panera Sip Club and have unlimited tea, coffee, and soft drinks. And I have 2 of those near my house, plus 1 near the church. So I'm usually just going in there a couple times a week when I find myself nearby to get my soda fix. And over the long run, I'm actually drinking less of it, which is probably a good thing too. If you've watched my channel before and you've seen my meal plans and even my budget meal plans, I am usually trying to work fruits and vegetables into our meals. But I don't depend on being able to buy fresh produce all year round. And I try to stay away from buying produce that's out of season because the price tends to be higher. I've been saying it for years, and I'm going to keep saying it. Frozen vegetables are an incredible value, okay? These are often picked, packaged, frozen within 24 to 48 hours of being harvested. And when it comes to the fresh produce in our stores, I like fresh produce, but it can get pretty pricey, especially when it's out of season. Plus, it has been harvested, it's been transported, it's been stored. It's probably not as fresh as what I'm going to get in the frozen packages. And I'm pretty careful to try to just buy things that don't have any added sauces or seasonings. I want to look at the ingredients and see that the vegetables on here are the only ingredients. I don't know why there is this idea out here that these are somehow junk. This is what it says it is. And now I'm throwing them everywhere. This is what it says on the package, broccoli florets. When I look at the ingredients, there is 1 broccoli, that's it. So if you are not utilizing these in your cooking and you want to have vegetables, you want to continue to have produce in your meals, but on a tight budget, I think frozen is the way to go. I will also say that I'm not averse to canned vegetables. In fact, you will almost always find cans of green beans. Canned green beans are actually one of my favorite vegetables. I don't know why, I just really like the texture. And if you're worried about sodium, a lot of brands, even house brands, make no salt added versions of these. But again, the ingredients are just green beans, water, and salt in this can. And speaking of produce, I'm going to say something very controversial now. Are you ready? I don't worry about buying organic. If you watch my channel, that's not a shock because you see my grocery hauls. I am the daughter of 2 farm kids. One of those farm kids also became a veterinarian and also became certified in food inspection because that was one of the jobs that veterinarians had in the Army. Little fun fact for you. I also live in an agricultural state. We know farmers, we know ranchers, we know agricultural scientists. I've done my own research on this and I know what I personally am comfortable with. That's not to say that I never buy something that's organic. In fact, I've mentioned several times that I really like to buy organic milk because it has a longer expiration date. It's ultra pasteurized, so it will keep a lot longer in my refrigerator than conventional milk. I also really like, the taste and quality of some products, or, the price is right. It's not that I never buy anything organic. I just don't worry about it if I'm buying conventional carrots. I just try to get produce into my family's diet in one way or another. That's just me personally. You may feel differently about it. I'm just saying that it's something that I don't worry about. Many of you encouraged me over the last few years to stop buying dryer sheets, and I finally took the plunge. I purchased some wool dryer balls. I have been using those for several months now, and I never purchased dryer sheets because I wanted my laundry to smell a certain way. I purchased dryer sheets to help with the static cling, and I was skeptical that dryer balls would do the same job of taking, the static out of my clothes, but I'm happy to say that I've been very pleased with the way that they perform, and I have not purchased dryer sheets in probably 4 or 5 months. So thank you. Thank you for encouraging me. Since I mentioned scent when talking about dryer sheets, it actually brings up my next item that I rarely, if ever, purchase, and that is scented candles or any kind of air fresheners whatsoever. It's not that I'm against scent. I mean, I have some scented detergents, I have some scented lotions. It's not that we don't have any perfumes in any of the products that we use. I just find them to be overpowering in my household. And so years ago, I stopped buying scented candles. I don't use plugins anymore. When I want to freshen up the household scent, I will usually pick a day whenever the weather's just right, and I will open the windows, just crack my windows around my house and let the air flow through for a few hours to kind of freshen everything up a little bit. Since I do a lot of cooking for my family and for my job, I find that having a candle going in the living room that's like a fresh lavender scent while I'm making beef stroganoff in the kitchen, the scents, they don't complement each other. And because of the way that my house is set up where everything kind of flows together, I just didn't like the mingling of the scents, and I found that I didn't miss them when they were gone. Case in point, I have had this candle for probably over 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. And you can see it's been lit maybe one time for a few minutes. The wax is still all the way almost up to the top. And just taking the lid off, I can already like smell it. Just taking the lid off, it throws a bit of the scent. So if I wanted like a mild smell, I guess I could go ahead and just take the lid off of it. I keep it because it's pretty and I think it looks nice with just some real minimal decor. But yeah, I've had it for a long time and I'm probably not going to be lighting it. If I do want a little bit of, you know, like a seasonal smell around the house, I have used stovetop potpourri before, which is usually just a mixture of fresh fruits or fruit juices and different spices like cinnamon and clove that you can put on the stove to simmer every day and kind of create that smell ambiance that we like. But scented candles, plugins, spray air fresheners, not a thing I spend my money on anymore. This is sort of a hodgepodge cabinet of things, but this is where I keep the very few amounts of paper plates and paper napkins. I've got a few styrofoam bowls here. This is it when it comes to plastic cutlery right now. And this is something that I pretty much only get out if we are entertaining. I really try to limit our use of paper goods so that I don't have to keep buying those things. They can really add up over time. We use real plates, we use real bowls, we even use real napkins. In fact, some of you guys were pretty impressed that I really only buy one big thing of paper towels from Sam's for an entire year because we try to use those things sparingly. I also have this little cabinet where I keep things that the kids can pack their lunches in. So there's some thermoses in here. There's not a lot in here right now because the kids are actually at school and they have some of the containers with them. But these are things that we can reuse to pack lunches in so that I can limit the number of like Ziploc bags that I'm buying. And when we do use things like Ziploc bags, I gotta tell you, if I'm only putting a few goldfish crackers in here or maybe a couple of leftover rolls from dinner, I'm probably gonna reuse that one again after it's done holding those things if it's just dry goods and it can easily be used again. Yes, I know that my drawers and my cabinets are in desperate need of an overhaul and a reorganization. That video is coming very soon, an entire kitchen declutter and reorganization, so be on the lookout for that. Now I know that there is still plenty of room in my household to kind of tighten the purse strings a little bit, and some of the things that I mentioned here you might think are completely superfluous and unnecessary. Everybody's just gotta kind of decide what's gonna work for their family. I jotted down a few other things that I would like to address that are still works in progress for me. One of them is coffee. I really need to get back to making ground coffee. I have kind of slid back into the K-cup habit just because it's so convenient and easy, and I found some good deals on K-cups recently. But I still know that over the long term, using ground coffee in my coffee maker is gonna be more cost effective. Another one is the packaged snacks. Now, I'm not gonna stop buying these, but I often have to remind my kids what these are for. When I find empty packages around the house, I know that they need to be reminded that these are for taking outside the house, like to swim meets or to basketball practice, or occasionally to pack in our lunches. And just continue to encourage them to make snacks when they're at home, like a peanut butter sandwich or a bowl of air popped popcorn or a yogurt parfait and fruit. And we can really cut back and limit the purchases of these types of things. Hand soap, I am a sucker for it, especially scented ones, especially foaming ones, even though I know that the amount of actual soap in this is like very little. We're basically paying for a lot of water in the dispenser. And I know that I can make this and refill these from a little bit of like Dawn dish soap and a bunch of water, but I've just gotten kind of lazy about it, you guys. Leave me a comment. What ideas do you have for things that maybe you're just thinking about purchasing less frequently, or items that you're eliminating from your household consumables budget? I hope I gave you some good ideas today. Be sure to check out one of these videos to watch next, and I'll see you there.